Good afternoon, Your Excellency, my friend Gunhild, to all of you. Thank you so much for being here. My panel, please come on stage. Oh, yeah. To those of you who know me, you know that my commitment is to ensuring that as we talk about a revolution, that revolution is not just about us, those who sit in these rooms, but the millions of people, the 500 million smallholder farmers who never sit in a room like this. And ensuring that the opportunities that we create, the changes that we make change in their lives. Because those 500 million farmers today feed in their countries usually about 80% of the population on a regular basis. And so the changes that will create a food system that is sustainable and durable, if we want, excuse me, those changes to have to have a global effect in the global south as well as in the global north, we must make those changes for smallholders. And I have a great panel here today to talk about how those changes can be brought to smallholders, the work that is already happening, and what is necessary to make the change sustainable and durable. Let me start at the end, as opposed to me introducing them. What I'd like to do is give each one of them an opportunity to, in 2 sentences, tell you who they are and why they're on this stage today. Let's start with you, Will.
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name's Wilmore, and I serve as Executive Director of the Eleanor Crook Foundation. We're a growing philanthropy focused exclusively on global nutrition. And our largest portfolio is research, implementation research, focused specifically in rural communities in East Africa, where in addition to being mothers and fathers, pretty much everyone is also a small shareholder farmer.
Bing.
Hi, good afternoon, and I'm Zhao. I'm doing smallholder food system related work in the World Food Program.
Thank you.
I'm here actually to strengthen myself as an optimist. Actually, a must-have quality when you work in WFP, facing with a lot of hungry people worldwide. That's the purpose why I'm also here to learn from you guys.
Thank you. Nora.
I am Nora. I am a farmer. I live with the farmers. I stay where the farmers stay. But I also lead a group of farmers, about 2,500. I also lead a team of researchers as a principal investigator on a farmer-led research network.
Diana.
I'm Diana Horvath. I'm a president and co-founder of the Two Blades Foundation. We're a science-based nonprofit that's concerned with addressing solutions for agriculture to help smallholder and large-scale farmers survive and prosper.
Terrific. John.
Thank you very much, Ertharin. My name is John Cordaro. I work for Mars Incorporated, where my general focus is on global food security, but specifically I work in nutrition and food safety. I've been working in this field for 5 decades. I may not look like I'm that old, but I am. And that underscores the fact that I'm still optimistic. I have not given up. I'm much more excited about the current potential that we have, and I'm looking forward to the discussion on smallholders today.
Terrific, John. So let's start with you. And not your work at Mars, but your work with the Orphan Crop Consortium. And how's that consortium working to move smallholder farmers from subsistence to profitability? And more importantly, how will smallholders benefit or contribute to the sustainable global food system that we are now talking about?
Thank you, Ertharin. Answering that question has been made a lot easier by a couple of speakers that we've heard already. Firstly, yesterday we heard the president of IFAD make the point that Ertharin has just underscored, that 80% of the food that's consumed in sub-Saharan Africa is produced by smallholders. And secondly is the point that Dr. Miyake made about the importance of Africa feeding and nourishing itself, and the African Orphan Crop Consortium being one of those initiatives. And I think that's the first point to underscore, and that is that the African Orphan Crops Consortium is an African initiative. It was founded and supported by the African Union Commission by a vote of the AUC Assembly in 2011. It is run out of Kenya at the in Nairobi at the Agroforestry Center, and supported by the African Plant Breeding Academy. The focus is on sequencing the genomes of 101 orphan African crops, but that's to be supported by training, as Dr. Miyake said, about 200 African scientists who will be plant breeders to be able to carry this project forward. We have made significant progress with this. We have sequenced over 80 of the 101. We expect to complete the sequencing by the end of 2019, and we are well on the way of training the African plant breeders. The goal of the output of this effort is that by 2030, 20% of the people in the rural populations of Africa will be consuming African orphan crops that have been sequenced with their nutritional value improved, that's resistant to climate impact and resistance to plant and other to pesticides and other disease challenges. In the urban area, we expect to be feeding 10% of the population. Another novel aspect of this activity is that it's based on a collaboration and partnership of about 35 different entities, including the Food and Agriculture Organization, which has taken a very strong stake in this initiative, and with a number of other governments, regional organizations, and farmers groups that we work with. So I think maybe that gives you a sense
really
of the value that this will have for smallholder farmers, not only for the farmers, but also for the fact that they'll be able to put more nutritious food on the table. They'll be able to market more nutritious foods. That will increase their income, and that will help to eliminate the poverty position that they're in. And as much as we focus on smallholders, I think the main thing that we want is to provide an opportunity for them to improve their personal and professional dignity.
That's fantastic. Thanks, John. Diana, what John's talking about with sequencing the genomes and getting those new seeds out to farmers is exactly what your organization is working to do. Is you're the bridge then between the work of the scientists, and you are a scientist, and those farmers. So how are you working to change the access that farmers have to new technology, particularly seeds?
Sure. So we're certainly able to benefit from efforts like the African Orphan Crop Consortium and the generation of knowledge like that. Our organization, Two Blades, is focused specifically on the greatest threat to food that most people have never heard of, and that's crop disease. The most famous example of crop disease is the Irish potato famine, where millions of people died or fled Ireland. It may surprise people to know that that disease is still around today, causing outbreaks around the world, causing annual damages, losses of about $3 billion to potato, which is the third most important food crop. Two Blades is interested in addressing pandemic diseases like this and other diseases of crops to ensure that farmers can harvest what they plant. We do this by setting up a different kind of organization. We're nonprofit. We bridge science between academic in innovation and discovery with industrial partners. We work regionally and also internationally with different partners. We are sort of a central point for collating and bringing together projects. We have a network of the best scientific minds that we bring together, and then we work to translate advances from the lab into the field so that we can get seeds into the hands of farmers so that they can not simply survive issues to do with crop disease, but they can actually thrive and have businesses in much the same way as JB was describing. An example of this, the need for this, I heard last week when I was in Kenya, speaking to many smallholder farmers who all were telling me stories about how crop disease was strongly impacting their ability to produce their food. One farmer, Steve Casamani, said, he showed me his tomato plants, which are a high-value crop, and said how they were suddenly dying. And I asked him, where does he get his information on crop disease? And he said, there's not that much. I get some information from the chemical supplier. And I looked at what the chemical supplier had sold him, and it was for the wrong disease. And I said, I'm sorry, this isn't going to help. And so he had wasted his precious money. He was unable to rescue his crop. And he lost the fees that he hoped to earn from that crop to send his child to school for the year. Mm-hmm. And additionally, he put a load in the soil of chemicals that really had no benefit. So Two Blades can benefit farmers by, first of all, engaging with them to talk about what are the crop diseases that they're experiencing, help them by taking the varieties that they prefer, introducing disease resistance to that back to them, and then they are protected from the worst diseases that they face, and they can recover the harvest that they're looking to recover. And by the fact that we're a nonprofit, we have the added advantage that we don't have any return on investment time frame as much as for-profit entities do. So that enables us to work on orphan crops that may not have immediate commercial value, and we can also be patient about it because the work that we're trying to do to build durable resistance, long-lasting resistance, does take some time.
Thank you. And so we're hearing about the science that is going into changing seeds for nutrition and profitability, and also for disease. And Dr. Meraki reminded us that all of this work, we must keep the farmers at the center of what we do. And so I'm really excited about our next speaker, Nora. Nora, you, of course, are a woman, but you're also a leader and an educator. And most importantly for our conversation here today, you're a farmer. And so as you hear the speakers before you talk about the different plant genetics work and science work and innovation work that is happening for your benefit, you tell us, are we doing the right things to support smallholder farmers?
I would think we are going to the right direction, except there are certain things that I feel as a farmer, they really don't reach the farmer. And looking at sometimes the environment that the farmer lives in, maybe also looking at things like energy that sometimes is missing in the rural setups, maybe even the acreage that a farmer is using as a place for production of food. And at the same time, looking at the levels of education. You know, when I'm here, I appreciate, and sometimes I tell the audience that listen and get the message that I'm giving. I don't look at whether I'm going to school or not. But as long as you can understand what I'm saying, what I'm trying to focus on, then you can advise me better. I was grateful. One of the speakers here today was saying that let's have the inclusive approach. And for us as farmers, when you include us in the planning process, before you plan actually and implement. And when you bring the technology in like the seeds, we shall be able actually to take in the seeds and adopt what to do. But as long as you do it in the labs, you do it in a certain system, you may find that it becomes a problem for us to actually take on and use that for our benefit. We are talking about nutrition. Traditional foods are there. When I was a young girl, my parents used to almost put everything on table, and we would always see food in the granaries. But today, we farmers are there to feed the hungry stomachs, and maybe to look for income, to pay maybe school fees for our children. At the same time, we farmers today even can, by the way, sell what's really nutritious, and we eat the remains. And maybe because we are doing sort of growing crops which are monotony, we tend to keep on eating maybe starch, like in my case, every time. Unfortunately, in my country, Uganda, women, especially in my culture, do not actually own land. And therefore, even the use of land is a bit limited. You have to find a way of actually, trying to lobby for your husband to be supportive and help you. But I want to say I'm grateful because of the transformative learning that I've gone through, because of the research being close. I have learned even to think like systems thinking. I have learned things like actually without intensification of agroecology, then nature may not actually interact and things move well. Sometimes I've also learned so many things to the extent that I can stand up as a farmer and actually lead the research and possibly be able to get the researchers, the experts, the knowledgeable people to look at what we have as innovations. So that when you look at our innovations, it means that you can advise us where we need you, not to advise us where we don't need you. Because if you advise us on what we don't understand, and the data we don't know how you've collected, the recommendations we don't know where you're taking us, sometimes we decide to neglect and you begin saying, the farmers don't know. You begin saying the farmers are stupid. You begin saying they don't understand. They have not gone to school. But like I say, when you come nearer and understand our situation, most likely even the issue of nutrition will become issue. Because down there in the farm, we have diversity. We have synergies. We have social capital. We can work as a team. We can work as a family. We understand one another. And farmers learn better from other farmers. Actually, I learned from other farmers as far as UK to keep time. If it was not from other farmers, I would be arriving here today, not the other day. I'm also grateful for Gipling. I'm learning how to use ICT, by the way. I've not gone to school, I've not gone to any college, but I'm learning how to manage talking on WhatsApp, taking records. I'm also learning how to understand the environment. And I'm learning how to share knowledge with others, meaning that once I get to know where you're thinking and you get to know where I'm thinking, then as a team, I think we can resolve many things. The other last thing, the youth are running away from the rural setups. And as a farmer group, we feel that the household kind of approach will do us the better. Why? many times, if your child gets to know that this is how my mother is living. By the way, my husband passed away, and I'm dealing with my young people in my house. I have a son who is going to politics. I have daughters who have studied. I mean, they are so above me that sometimes I feel like saying that maybe if I say anything, my children will say old-fashioned. But I've been able to pull them along to the extent that I'm even getting one of them going to do agriculture.
That's
I'm also
fantastic.
getting some of them.
Well, thank you very much, Nora. That was fantastic. And we hear you. I hope all of us hear you. Include us. And I think if we don't walk away with any other message from a farmer, include us as we are devising solution. Take in our innovations before you bring us your innovations. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nora. Bing, you're at WFP. WFP has implemented several programs directly speaking to the issues that Nora raised and about working with farmers to create more sustainable food systems. Tell us about those programs and how they're making a difference and how you're listening to farmers.
Right, thank you, Ertharin, and extremely honored to be in your panel, actually. And I confirm what I heard from Nora about the need, I mean, from the perspective of a smallholder, of a women farmer leader. And also I confirm that also in WFP's experiences, smallholders really matter to the food system topic that we're talking about, and then investing in smallholders really pays off. So as many of you may know that actually WFP works across in 80 countries to address chronic, but more often very acute food shortages, hungers, malnutrition. But for example, in many of the very, war-stricken areas nowadays in the world. But of course, while we are best known for handing out those much-needed life-saving food assistance, we also realized that actually innovative ways and integrated approaches to help smallholders to also strengthen the food system, which provide the nutritious and a stable supply of food, is also a critical and an opportunity for WFP. That's why actually we have in WFP initiated and developed with years a portfolio of smallholder-facing initiatives to really strengthen food systems in an integrated way. And actually nowadays, WFP's smallholder initiatives, much actually under yourselves' guidance when you were the executive director of WFP, have actually evolved into an integrated programmatic tool for WFP to design interventions at country level, more at country level, to help smallholders. Now our beneficiaries, our smallholders that we have helped have reached millions, at least 2 million in all the country offices and across more than 60 countries. And among these initiatives, actually, some of them, they belong to the so-called thematic area, thematic-driven kind of initiatives, including asset creation for smallholders, including helping smallholders to address climate challenges. But we also have a thrust of work which we call the smallholder market efforts, smallholder market support initiatives, including the so-called Purchase for Program initiative, which I'm specifically responsible of. And also the Farm to Market initiative, which I know that it was under Ertharin yourself, we have initiated. And actually with those purchase-driven initiatives, we are trying to use and harness WFP's own demand, for example, and also WFP's deep field presence to actually link smallholders to WFP's buying power. But we're also increasingly working with government and helping governments and the private sector, that is under the Farm to Market Alliance I'm mentioning, to encourage them to buy also, to use their purchasing power to buy from smallholders. Private sectors, the grain reserves, their national homegrown school feeding initiatives, those have produced very good systemic results. And also at the same time, from the supply side, we also worked with partners like FAO, but also many other partners, private sector, NGOs, to really provide the kind of assistance to the farmers, to the smallholder farmers. For example, in areas of disease control, selecting the right varieties to grow, and then to address their post-harvest challenges so that they can really be a market participant. So these are all the very good experiences that we have accumulated.
Fantastic.
What I want to add is that actually I'm glad that Nora also mentioned her knowledge about ICT and being a knowledge sharer. In fact, we have initiated 2 years ago a small pilot to use an app to link Zambia smallholders to markets. So these are all things that we are trying to respond to the need of a smallholder like Nora in countries like Uganda. So,
fantastic. Increasing
That's
farmer
it. Thank you.
profitability, increasing their capacity, providing them with ICT,
Yeah.
changing the opportunities for them for the future. Great programs. Will, you bring a completely different perspective to this. We've been talking about the supply side so far. You're much more focused on, you and your organization are much more focused on driving the demand for nutritious food. How can that drive for demand for nutritious food affect how smallholder farmers grow and profit in the future?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I do want to admit I'm not a farmer. I know nothing about farming. After years of trial and error, I have recently converted to plastic houseplants. But the Eleanor Crook Foundation is focused on nutrition, which, at least in theory, should sit at the nexus of agriculture and of health. And I've been really encouraged to hear more than once this afternoon that it's time to stop just talking about more soybeans, more corn, greater yields, greater profit. We need to really start getting serious about the impacts of agriculture on human health as well. And that goes even in these local communities, these rural communities in East Africa where we're focused, where farmers are really just working to get by. I think the Eleanor Crook Foundation has been focused on mostly demand generation. And when people hear nutrition, they think agriculture. But what nutrition is far more focused on is behavior change. We want everybody in the world to know that you should exclusively breastfeed your child for the first 6 months. And after that, you should begin feeding them complementary foods that are rich in vitamin A, vitamin B, iron, zinc. And we're now spending over $800 million a year, the global nutrition community, doing that kind of local knowledge dissemination, that kind of local behavior change in these communities, these rural communities in low and middle income countries. It's in a way, we're spending $800 million a year on advertising, and advertising focused in large part on healthier foods. But I think where we haven't been focused is in the nutrition community, the health community, is on the demand side of things. And so just briefly, I've a few years ago visited a nutrition project in northern Uganda that had just concluded, and it had seen really encouraging results, almost 20% reductions in malnutrition for children under 2. And when I got there, I said, that's really great, that's really exciting, but I'd like to talk to a mother of a child who wasn't part of that 20%, whose child was still malnourished after going through our programming. And so I did get a chance to speak to a number of women. And one woman I spoke to, she had her child on her back. He was 2.5. He looked like he was 4 months old because he had been permanently stunted from that lack of nutrition. And she said, I'm so thankful for the program because I now understand that my child needs proteinaceous foods, that my child needs access to vitamins and minerals. But the problem is I can't get those things. When I go to the market, they're not always there. And when they are there, I can't afford them. And that's where I think the nutrition sector, the health sector, needs to be working much more closely with the agriculture sector. Because the answer is really right in those same communities. We have all these small shareholder farmers that are struggling to get by. We're doing all of this demand generation. We're spending $800 million a year doing the marketing. Why don't we work hand in hand with the local shareholder farmers, with the agriculture community to generate that demand and to create markets right in those local communities that are going to increase yields and profit, but are also going to improve nutrition?
Fantastic. So I'll come back to you, John, very quickly. The work that you're doing, how does that demand for nutrition affect the opportunities that you can provide for smallholder farmers to meet that demand?
Absolutely. In fact, again, picking up on what Dr. Miyake said, if he had had more time, he would have explained that the idea for the African orphan crops came from a discussion and a realization of malnutrition and stunting, and that had to be solved locally. Picking up on what Will is saying about the demand side, is that what I talked about initially is the first phase. By the end of 2019, we'll be ready to scale up to the next 2 phases. One will be the work with the extension workers and with the farmers, and then the consumer education part to make sure that there's good knowledge of the value of these African orphan crops and their nutritional value, how the farmers can work with them, and how the in-home use and preparation will have value not only to the children that are there, but also to the mother who may give birth to future children, less likely to be born with a disposition to stunting. So I think that's the value that we have.
I want to go quickly to Nora. As the farmer at the center, is that demand being met? And what are the things that you as a farmer would need, as a smallholder farmer will need, to ensure that we can meet the demand for nutritious food?
As a farmer, I think really we need a holistic approach on this issue of nutritious food, because when you look at the other side of the diseases, we grow beans. Smallholder farming sometimes has got a diversity of crops in the field. We grow beans, we grow cassava, we grow this and that. But because sometimes the pests and diseases come in and destroy what we are growing, it means that we are losing the nutrients that could be mixed into other things for the sake of our feeding. At the same time, I also think that because sometimes we do not have enough income, we go cutting trees and also degrade the soils and degrade the environment, and therefore you find that even the environment will need an attention. So to me, nutrition needs a holistic approach.
A holistic approach. With that, I'll start with you, Diane, and we have 1 minute and 21 seconds left, so I'm going to ask you to keep your response to about 20 seconds. Tell me, what does and what will smallholder farming look like as we move into the future to feed the 10 billion? What must it
Big
look
question,
like?
but capturing many of the thoughts expressed here today, diversity of crops to protect against any specific disease losses or other issues, addressing the nutrition that's needed by farmers and their communities, and successful businesses that allow them to thrive.
Bing, what does smallholder farming look like in the future?
Well, yeah, I would imagine that smallholder farmers will, the future world of agriculture will still be rather dominated by smallholders, and I'm sure that better organized smallholders, including in terms of women's groups or farmers' organizations, will be the way that smallholders will become stronger players and contributing to the healthier and sustainable food systems.
Will, if smallholders are going to meet the nutrition challenge, what will smallholder farmers look like?
What will they look like?
What will their future?
Well, I mean, I think it can go many ways, but if we can all drop our organizational banners and our sectoral banners in the way that I think EAT Foundation is encouraging us to do this week, I think we can find a way to empower smallholder farmers in a way that recognizes that they're business people, they need to make money, but also allows them to do that in ways that are friendly for the environment and friendly for the health of themselves and their neighbors.
John, you get my last word here because we're already over time.
Well, I think the key is that there's a recognition. We talked about holistic. It needs to understand that none of these things we've talked about can be achieved unless we recognize the collateral components that have to be brought together to make it happen. And then I think that if we're able to do that 10, 20 years from now, the way we'll be describing the smallholder farmer is going to be that they're producing more nutritious foods, they are making more money, they're sending their kids to school, the kids are getting a better education, fewer of them are stunted, and we're going to be able to see an improvement in the economic development of the countries that they're farming in.
And I said that, but I'm going to go to you, Nora. You're my farmer. What does your future look like?
My future and my fellow farmers' future, actually, if things don't change into inclusive and holistic approach, it will be difficult for us to step away from where we are. But looking at what it is bringing in here and many other global alliances working around here and there as a team, I believe that we shall actually get out from this kind of a situation, because when we have enough income and when we can manage our food systems and when we are growing, we understand that when we grow this, I am growing for this kind of a nutrient. My soil is lacking this kind of nutrient, and my body, my children are eating this kind of nutrients. I think the future will be better for the farmers and the whole house.
And that's the last word. The future will be better. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you.